I'm Jessica and I'm the creator of the Essentialist Diet. The Essentialist Diet is my corner of the internet to share with you my wellness tips, my weight loss tips, my favorite workouts, my healthy recipes, and more. But as a disclaimer, I am not a doctor, health practitioner, dietitian, or nutritionist. Everything that I share is based on my personal interest, research, and experience. What works for me may not work for you. So before you change anything about your health or wellness, always consult your doctor. I've been getting a lot of new followers lately, and I realized that many of you don't know me or my story. In fact, some people were even skeptical that a transformation took place. I recently posted a picture of a before and after. The before was my absolute lowest point. It was November 2017. And here I am today, healthy, happy, optimized, never felt better. I don't think I've ever looked this good, and I'm turning 40 this year. I'll take you through how I got to the Essentialist Diet, but let's start with the before. As context, I have always been skinny and athletic throughout my entire life. I'm originally from Houston, Texas, but I moved to New York City in 2000 and lived there for 13 years until I met my boyfriend and moved out to California. When I was in New York, I had an Equinox gym membership that I used like it was my second home. I would go to all the classes, hang out there after work, and it was just part of my routine. I also took Pilates and yoga classes, I walked everywhere, and on the weekends, I would even enter 5K and 10K races. This is me finishing a race in 2012. When I entered my 30s, I did notice that my metabolism slowed down, but it wasn't anything that I couldn't manage. It wasn't really out of wellness as much as it was me just trying to hack away and figuring out how to look good. So I tried the macrobiotic diet, I tried the Dukan diet, I tried various things over the years. But yeah, like I said, I never really had any issues. It was just something that I was preoccupied with. So in 2013, I met my boyfriend, and after a few months, he asked me to move to his ranch in California. And I was up for an adventure, so I said, yeah, let's do it. I moved out to his ranch, which was a 600-acre property in the middle of nowhere, and it was in the Central Valley. I always thought of myself as someone who was adaptable and resilient, and I am, but looking back, I didn't realize what a jarring transition and adjustment period that was for me. I felt so isolated, I felt lonely and lost. Because I was in such a new environment and couldn't find my footing, I was willing to let other people tell me who I should be. You know, in the beginning, I would get dressed, would do my hair and makeup, and my boyfriend said to me, "Why are you doing all of this? We're living in the middle of the mountains." And for me, that was the grounding routine that I needed to just be in touch with myself. But he pretty much pulled the rug out from under me, thinking it was a good thing to do. He was like, "You don't need to wear makeup. You don't need to do your hair. Just relax, just embrace it." When I moved to the ranch, I was like, maybe he's right. Maybe I should just let loose. I didn't realize that that was the structure that I functioned in the best, whether or not I lived in a city. I think we lived there for 3, almost 4 years, but it was just super stressful for me. The climate was extreme. There was no access to local organic food. I'd kind of just leaned into it, and I was just making mashed potatoes for dinner, biscuits. I had time to just cook and cook and cook. And I loved to cook. It was kind of my escape. Weirdly, I replaced my diet and exercise with just cooking all of these rustic style foods. I would bake biscuits and gravy. Like, we had gravy, it was like normal. Like, I never ate like that in New York, but when I moved to the ranch, my whole diet, my whole routine, everything changed. I look so different then too. My time living at that ranch was probably one of the worst times in my life because it was when I was most disconnected to myself and who I actually am. We sold that property in 2017, end of summer, and we had 3 months before moving into our current home. And instead of renting a house temporarily, we decided to use those 3 months to just travel. We went on road trips, then we flew to New York, and then after New York, we flew to London. And being on the road was really tough too because I couldn't establish a routine either. That time from 2013 to 2017, my life was so much in the air. I mean, even when I was living at the ranch, it was up in the air because I'd contemplated leaving so many times because I didn't know if I could take the isolation. But I powered through. We sold the ranch, we're on the road, we're traveling. I mean, I love to travel, but as a trip, not as a lifestyle. I think it's super stressful. I'm the kind of person that likes to have a routine, a home, structure. Like, that's where I function the best. So my absolute worst point was in the middle of that transition, which was November 2017. This picture was taken when we had just landed in London. I'd just gotten out of the shower. I was by myself at the hotel room and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna take a picture of myself in the mirror. I was so disconnected that I didn't even know what I looked like anymore. I don't know if you've ever felt that way, but I was at that point. Taking a picture of yourself full on in a mirror is different than looking at yourself in the mirror because you're removed from it. You can see the cold reality in front of you. I hadn't taken a picture of myself in so long, so I just stood in front of the mirror in my bra and underwear and just stood straight on and took a picture of myself and looked at it. And I just didn't recognize myself anymore. Even looking at this picture today, I remember that feeling of this heaviness and feeling so uncomfortable in my own skin and feeling almost like I was just going through the motions and not being present or mindful. Thinking I was, but actually I wasn't. So we moved into this house, or the new house, in December. We had to get furniture. I mean, it took us a few months to settle in. By then, I had already established somewhat of a routine. I started to get to know the area a little bit better. For the most part, my body calmed down. By that summer, so summer 2018, I decided to do another body evaluation and take a picture of myself in the mirror again. I remember turning to the side and taking a picture of myself from the side. I would suck in my belly, but it didn't even make a dent. And that's when I was like, I have got to get to the bottom of this. I was determined to do something about it, but I didn't even know where to start. I never thought I would get to the point where it got so bad that I was like, what do I do? When I was trying to figure out where to start, I was like, okay, I'm gonna Google how to get a long, lean body. And that's when I came across Rachel Attard's website. And she's this Australian personal trainer who specialized in creating long, lean legs. Her workout was centered around one thing: walking. Walking for a very long time at a brisk pace. It was so simple that I was willing to give it a try. It made sense because there was no use in me doing Pilates or yoga workouts to tone if I still had a layer of fat on me. The first step was really for me to burn the fat. I bought her Lean Legs program. I think it was like $80. For the first week, it was just walking and alternating with like high intensity training. I tried to follow it, but after a while I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep it simple and tell myself that I need to walk at least 30 minutes a day, every day. Where we live is super hilly. The roads are super narrow and curved and winding. It's very dangerous to walk around the neighborhood. So I made a commitment by joining the gym down in town. It was just this little gym with like 2 treadmills. I was determined to go there every day and walk for 30 to 60 minutes. It started with 30 because I needed to condition my body to the speed and the duration. I started, I think, at 3 miles an hour for 30 minutes, and it took me about a week to condition my body. And then the next week, I increased the speed and the duration. And then finally, I worked myself up to walking for 60 minutes at 4.3 miles an hour. And the difference was dramatic. I think after 3 weeks, I had significantly slimmed down all over my body. And I was even starting to get a thigh gap. I am a mesomorph, so my body type is just like the average athletic body type, and it can bulk up really fast. So if I'm doing the wrong workouts, my body becomes more bulky and muscular, not lean and long. So walking was just huge for me. And I did that consistently for 2 months, I think. Yeah, October. So by October, I'd completely slimmed down. Like you can see, I actually went to my friend's wedding in Palm Springs, and that was probably the slimmest I had been in years since moving to California. So even though I got to that point, I'm sure like 2 weeks later, if I was PMSing, it would swing upwards, to 5 pounds or 3 pounds. So it kept going up and down. It wasn't stabilized. So here's a picture from January 2020. As you can see, from October 2018 to January 2020, that is another drastic change. So that just shows you that my results were not stabilized. So last year, again, that was holiday weight, January 2020. I was like, okay, gotta lose this weight. Started doing my walking again, intense walking and diets. I tried the Goop Detox, I tried plant-based, I tried alkaline Viva Meyer style. I was all over the place again, and then I would eat badly for 2 weeks. My stomach was constantly bloated last year. I felt uncomfortable. I didn't know what to do. It was super frustrating. It started to get better over the summer, but again, throughout the fall, it was up and down. And my breaking point was 2 days after Thanksgiving. A friend of mine had brought over a cheesecake, and I remember opening that cheesecake box and just eating forkfuls of it. It tasted good in the first bite, but as I kept going, it felt terrible. And I hated myself for continuing to eat, but I couldn't stop. I was almost like gorging myself and never felt satiated, even though I had the feeling like I was having a double chin and something inside my body was telling me to stop, and I just couldn't stop. And finally, I threw that cheesecake away, and I was willing to do something drastic. Originally, I thought that I had a stomach bacteria. I scheduled an appointment with a gastroenterologist, and I took the test. It tested negative. And because I told him I was having digestive issues and just painful bloating, like the scraping feeling inside my stomach, he was like, it sounds like you're reacting to high fiber foods. Stay away from popcorn, nuts, beans, grains, all of that. Around that time, I had also been looking into elimination diets, and it kept coming back to the carnivore diet. So you can either go extreme, which is beef and water, or you can just only eat animal-based products. I'd gotten to the point where I was so desperate, I was willing to give it a try. But I have to say, it took me months of reading testimonials, research, and really understanding the nutritional principles and the digestive functions for me to take that step. So it's not because I was just copying what somebody else was doing, it was because I took the time to look into it myself, watch YouTube videos of testimonials, and see if it made sense. So it started with just me having a 3-day goal, and I think I ate steak and oysters and egg yolks and butter and bone broth. And after 3 days, I felt no bloating. You don't understand, I had been going through painful bloating all of last year. So when I was doing this for 3 days and felt no bloating, I was shocked. I was like, okay, well, let me try it for 5 days. After 5 days, my stomach started to de-bloat. and I was completely shocked. I wasn't even working out. That's why I was so shocked. I was just eating in that way, and my body was responding so well. So I kept extending and extending because I kept feeling better and better, like better and better than ever before. And my face was slimming down, my whole body was slimming down. I wasn't working out at all. And also, the other thing was I was feeling so clear-headed and satiated. I wasn't snacking all the time. I didn't have cravings. I was totally stable. So I did carnivore-ish for about 30 days. I tried to extend it to 6 weeks, and then I realized that, you know, this might be too extreme for me personally. You know, just looking at all these carnivore accounts and just seeing people eat 3 pounds of meat every day, it was just very, very extreme. So even though it healed me after 30 days, for me, I just didn't see it as being sustainable. And also people, I feel, who latch onto the carnivore diet can be quite dogmatic at times too, and that kind of turned me off. But I really like this idea of, instead of plant-based or animal-based, why not think about eating in terms of nourishing your body based on what's the most nutrient-dense food and prioritizing that. Slowly, I started to incorporate principles that I had picked up from other diets, whether it be plating or chewing your food really well, and I started developing Essentialist Diet based on that. And it works. You know, my friends were seeing my transformation and asking me, what are you eating? What are you doing? Why don't you create an Instagram account so that you don't have to keep texting us? I had a friend who encouraged me to just lean into it and create content specifically for Essentialist Diet. So that's what I've been doing. My tips for weight loss or wellness, the first thing I would recommend is to take inventory of your well-being. For me, it was taking a picture of my body, and it wasn't just looking at my body, it was seeing how the state of my inner being was being reflected in my physical body. Only you know, by looking at a picture of your body, what is going on in your life, your thoughts, your feelings, other situations that people might not know about. Taking that awful picture of myself was probably the wake-up call that I needed. The next thing I would recommend to you is be curious. Look into other people's wellness journeys. Look into testimonials. Look at opposing views. Look at criticisms. Look at testimonials. Evaluate the whole spectrum. See where it leads you. See what makes sense to you. The next thing I would say is be willing to experiment. I mean, like I said, I started with a 3-day goal. You can do anything for 3 days. Do it for 3 days and see how you feel. If it's positive, maybe keep going and see where it leads. The fourth thing I would say is to keep track of your progress. And this is something that I haven't really been good about. It would be good to just take a before picture and use that as motivation to improve every week. Pictures make a difference, they really do. The next thing is consistency. The goal can just be, I will be consistent for a week. That's it. It's not anything else than setting the goal to be consistent. You have to be in a place where you're mentally committed to doing that. Your success is going to rest on that decision to be committed. For me, if my goal is to get my body down to its baseline, I don't care if I have to eat the same thing every day. I don't care if I'm not gonna go meet my friends for drinks. Getting my health and wellness in check trumps it all. I think that you need to have that attitude if you are going to set the baseline. And finally, what's been helpful for me on this journey is to also think about this as directional. Don't feel bad if you stumble in the beginning, as long as you're stumbling in the right direction. It's gonna be tricky in the beginning. You know, like we have our habits, our bodies are conditioned a certain way, so we have to acknowledge that there is going to be a rough start, but you have to push through. I am working on putting together the Essentialist Diet 30-day reset guide with everything that has helped me get to this point so far. It's going to include inspiration, tips, like personal tips. It's going to include menus, grocery lists, recipes, favorite workouts. It's going to include all of that. So stay tuned. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me.